Losing land used to grow crops, put food on the shelves, and feed people around the world. That land is disappearing here in Idaho. Oftentimes, it's sold to developers, and once that land is developed, it will never be used for agriculture again. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture census, Idaho lost 144,000 acres of land from 2017 through 2022. Will Idaho continue to lose acreage at that rate? What will the future of farming look like in the Gem State in the years to come? And how are farmers working to protect their land? Those questions are why we brought this to our group together today, to hear how land loss is impacting Idaho's agricultural future. First, I want to start by thanking all of you guys here for being here and willing to have this conversation and opening the door to those conversations of how we find that solution. So we're going to start right here. Tristan, I'm going to have you give me a little bit about your background, where you come from.
I'm Tristan Weininger. I was born and raised in Weiser. Graduated from Weiser High School, then graduated from Boise State, and I've always been on the farm. I'm the president of the Washington County Farm Bureau, and my wife and I and our family farm just under 1,000 acres.
What do you farm?
We grow mostly forage crops and some seed beans.
Nice. Okay, then going to John.
Yeah, so John Hoadley, born and raised right here in Caldwell, fourth generation. Grew up actually on two family farms just below the Caldwell Dam. Been in agriculture over 50 years. Currently, I'm vice president of operations for Summit Seed Coatings. I'm also the board chair for the Ag Protection Committee, which currently resides under the Idaho Eastern Oregon Seed Association.
All right, then we're taking it over to George.
George Crookham, CEO of Crookham Company, fourth generation. This is our 114th year in the Treasure Valley. Our main crops are sweet corn, popcorn, and onion seeds.
So all of you have all been in the ag industry for quite some time, very familiar with what's going on. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that are facing farmers today? Compare it to when you started versus now. We'll start with George.
I would say the biggest challenge is the encroachment of on-farm land with residential. It makes it more challenging for farmers to get their equipment around. It's difficult when you have two zones that are incompatible with each other. So that is the biggest challenge I see.
I was going to say, you kind of go through the commercial, the residential side. You kind of see a lot of that in your industry too, right?
Yes, we have farmland, we have commercial, we have industrial. And personally own some residential land myself, just my home.
And then carrying it over.
Yeah, so I agree with George on a lot of those points. Agriculture fragmentation right now is one of those challenges, trying to move equipment around. The cost of competing against, cost of housing, development, the land prices, just all in general are pushing what I would say are the farmers that are on that precipice of, I have a couple hundred acres, I'm surrounded by development. That becomes a challenge. We have neighbor conflicts. ISDA has to respond to many, many different complaints over the years. They have to investigate them all. So there's conflict there for farmers today that are up or in the middle of some of those developments.
You say complaints, is it stuff like noise complaints? Is it things like that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a lot of it is if a farmer's out there, let's say 10 o'clock at night, and he's swathing his hay. There are operations that require due moisture in the air when we're cutting beans, in the middle of the night, early mornings, when we're combining. There's different times of the day. We have, when we're working the land, we have dust. When we're disking down the soil. So farmers try to do a great job of containing what they can. But when you're running your tractors and you're trying to operate those operations up against the fence of a community, there's those challenges. On top of that, we also have isolation challenges. Most people don't understand that here in the valley, most farmers, we're the seed mecca of the world. And those challenges are, we have a lot of 22.3 acres is our average field size. So imagine, you have a onion seed crop or a corn crop, and you've got the neighbor that wants to grow their garden with their sweet corn. And so there's cross-pollination issues. And we try to go in and talk to landowners and residentials from seed companies' perspectives and say, look, we'll buy all the sweet corn seed you want at the store, but we really need you to take that or detassel that, because when we can lose $15,000 an acre on a crop. So we have isolation issues and challenges for farmers as well.
Yeah, it's got to be tough. Okay,
Yep.
Tristan.
In our end of the valley, it's mostly home building is our biggest issue. The wave of development, we're just on the precipice of getting hit by it. And it started, but it's not nearly as bad as it is over on this end of the Treasure Valley. But by us, we have homes being built in the middle of beautiful farm ground, away from the city, and we need to control that growth and get it where it should be and grow in a smart way. So that's our problems.
You know, when you look at the Treasure Valley, I know since returning back home, it's evolved, it's grown so much. So as a farmer perspective, has that been so difficult to see just how much expansion has happened? And I mean, we've read the numbers. It's an incredible amount of land loss there.
For me, it's hard to see because when I leave here, I go home to a small town. And I love where I live. I love everything about it. I like when harvest is going on and the dirt's in the air. I like doing tillage. I love planting. I like seeing things grow. We also have beef cattle. I love working with them. And then the closer I come to Ada County, the worse it gets. The farmland disappears and it's all homes and shopping centers and gas stations. And I understand those things need to happen. But born and raised here, when I used to come to Boise with my mom to go to Costco, and it used to be where the Cabela's building is now, we would drive on a road and hardly pass a single person all the way from where we get on the freeway in Ontario to here. And now it's constant traffic 24/7, nothing but lights all night long, and it's just changed. It's turned into a mecca.
Yeah, so springboarding off of that, we fight some of the same challenges. We talk to farmers, for example, being in the seed industry, here in the valley. At one point in time, we had over 18,000 acres of certified alfalfa seed. Today, we have less than 5. So that's pushing a lot of that crop rotation that farmers used to do. And some of that comes up with what can I grow against a residential community. So when you talk to farmers, it's affecting some of those crop rotations that they have. How do I defoliate a crop? So for us, it's kind of the same thing Tristan said. How do we get from point A to point B? And I grew up in Caldwell. When I was a kid, we had less than 18,000 people here in the valley in 1987. And when we looked at today, Caldwell, for example, is 70,000 people. And we're compressing so much, but then we look at, what's the cause and effect of that? How do we navigate all of these challenges as a farmer? Well, when you talk to them, there are legacy farmers that want to continue to farm, but they get 7, 8, 9, 10 phone calls, from developers, and to the point, I don't want to hear this anymore. And then you have the smaller farmer who's, I'd say, more of a hobby farmer. Maybe he's farming 100 acres, and maybe it makes sense to them. But so there's a little bit of a conflict there, but I think they all feel differently in different ways with what's going on in growth. Some want to be here, and some, it's too incompatible.
To your question, I think every farmer in the valley is blatantly aware of the growth and the challenges.
I think it's well said. I mean, on that, what are some of the main reasons? You kind of listed them already, but what are some of the main reasons that a farmer would decide, okay, I'm finally going to sell my land? Is it equipment costs? What's the background and the pull to do that?
I would say one of the biggest ones is harassment. I mean, we have Idaho's Right to Farm Act, which means the farmers can act in a professional way, in a normal way, and continue their operations. As John said, the Idaho State Department of Agriculture gets called all the time with complaints about the farming. And then the farmer has to defend themselves with records that they're required to keep. And more than 85% of the time, there is no wrongdoing there. However, it does not stop local residents or developments out in farmland from complaining or threatening lawsuits against normal practices. So one of the biggest challenges could be, or is, I believe, harassment, for lack of a better term.
So I look through that same lens, of course, but on the other side of that, there is a cost of doing business. And if you look at turmoil of what agriculture is up against, you have to actually part this in two different ways. So what you hear typically at the federal levels, we're talking today on tariffs, et cetera, commodity prices, soybeans, corn. Most people don't understand that there is a dividing factor, which is essentially the Rocky Mountains. You look east of the Rocky Mountains, it's a total different playing field. Different challenges, combines $1 million, they run through those, they turn them over. Typically those combines go into a pool. A farmer who can't afford $1 million combine goes out and buys that combine as a used combine for $500,000-600,000. Well, that's dried up right now because most of those combine guys on that other side of the fence, they can't afford right now to go buy those combines and those implements. Not only that, but the cost of fertilizers continues to go up. And what we're trying to do is maintain that balance, right? So when we come to west of the Rockies, here in Canyon County, Treasure Valley, we look at, as I said earlier, 22.3 acres. We have small field sizes that fit all of our multiple different seed crops. So we grow lettuce, carrots, turnips, radish, onions, a variety of different garden beans, commercial beans. So we have variety that we can spread out a little bit in those challenges, and that's where crop rotation comes in. So it is kind of a two-part, but when my grandfather, great-grandfather, $500 an acre, my grandfather, $1,000 an acre, my brother, $35,000 an acre to buy farmland, how do you compete with that? When commodity prices, seed crop prices, they're all challenging because the input prices are going up. So how do you balance that? Because at the end of the day, we have to feed the world. And George always likes to say, and you're gonna have to excuse me, George, but to use his words, microchips are what, to computers like seeds are to food. And when you step back in Canyon County, this is where we grow our microchips, for our food. And that's really the bigger risk that most people don't understand. But we do as a seed industry, because we understand the value globally, like here in the county, we export to over 120 different countries. Where do you want your food to come from? Well, we're seeing those challenges now. And how do we battle that? Well, when we're going to depend on China and other foreign countries for, Mexico and others to feed ourselves, all they have to do is turn the spigot off. Then what do? Look at our beef industry right now. It's the same challenges going on. You're seeing it at the grocery store. $10 a pound, for ribeye steaks. We run out, we go to Argentina. So how do you balance those costs? So that pushes the farmer to the end where he goes, I'm about capitalized out. How do I maintain those economic values? The kids don't want it. I'm at the end of my rope here. Sometimes they don't have a choice. So kind of fairly give you a wide answer. It's kind of a two-part look.
Yeah, I mean, harassment, you're talking about input costs. After the break, we're gonna get to Tristan and hear what he's going through. Again, a lot of conversations being had about challenges that farmers are facing. We're gonna talk more about it after the break. Welcome back. We are joined by our team of farmers, I should say, talking about main reasons why a farmer would sell their land if that be the case, some of the challenges that you guys are going through. So Tristan, we're picking back up with you.
So in my end of the county, the main reason why a farmer would sell their land is the price. I mean, it is worth so much more than they think they could ever make off of it by growing a crop to just sell it to a developer. The problem is that's the end of the line. Once it's turned into a home or a parking lot or a shopping center or a gas station, that's it. It's going to be that forever. It can't be back in production ag. The other problem is if that growth is happening uncontrolled and out in the ag land, it makes it even harder for us to do our job, and it makes the land around it worth so much that it's not worth it for them to farm anymore either. Another problem that we have is, at least with the last generation, nobody wanted to come back to the farm. But I will say I'm excited to see in the Farm Bureau organization, there's the Young Farmer and Ranchers program. And in that program, there are, and this is important, families, young families that want to farm. that want to raise their kids on a farm. And when I was going to Boise State, I had an accounting class, and the accounting teacher was great. And he made a statement that I strongly disagree with, and he said, if you can't make money doing something and your accounting is showing that, then you wouldn't be doing it. Well, he hasn't met very many farmers because we barely make ends meet most of the time, but there is nothing else in this world that I would rather do. I like being out in the dirt. I like seeing things grow. I enjoy it. The scenery changes every day. It's fun, and it's fun to pass that on to the next generation. And so, to my original point, there's young family farmers that want to do this. And so if they could do it, they would, but it's just so expensive for them to buy land and continue. It's nearly impossible unless they had a family farm that they could inherit or work out a deal on. So that's what we're seeing in our end of the valley.
And because the farms are becoming more scarce, right?
Yep.
So that's going to increase the cost of a farm, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, all of you have been very involved in the process of just bringing this up in conversation and just trying to get things moving. You know, state, federal, local, we're talking about that and how we can actually make changes. So Tristan, start off, kind of talk to me about what you've done to maybe see if we can start this conversation in the community.
So my entire life, my ancestors complained about the growth that's happening in Idaho, and they haven't even seen what's happening right now, you know, and they don't like it when a house gets built in the middle of farm ground and all those things. And so I've heard that my entire life. And as president of the Washington County Farm Bureau is a grassroots organization. So every policy that we have comes from the foundation, the grassroots, the members up. And so 3 years ago, we had our policy development meeting at the county level. And I just mentioned, hey, I think we need to do something about this uncontrolled growth that's happening in the Treasure Valley. And there's a lot of negative feedback on that because, you know, what are you going to do? How can you stop it? And I'm just not, I'm an eternal optimist. I don't believe in that. I think that there are ways that we can control it and make it better, or at least make more sense. Anyway, came from the county level, went to district, went to state. We came up with a policy that if there was a volunteer program that farmers could get in, incentivized or not, to protect farm ground, that we would support it. And from there, eventually, we worked with American Farmland Trust and other organizations, and we developed this idea of doing APAs, or ag protection areas, in the state. And so that's kind of been our baby, and we've been working on that for the past 3 years, and it's really starting to get traction now. What we really need is funding to incentivize farmers to want to sign up for it, because right now there just isn't. So
with APAs, is there incentivized? What's an APA?
An APA is an ag protection area, and if you sign up to be in an APA, there are certain protections that they give you to keep from being encroached on. So if you have a family farm that you want to protect and you sign up for an APA, it basically helps protect you. The problem is the money just isn't there. We need to incentivize farmers to make that land worth more being in a farm, or at least close to it, than being developed into houses. And eventually you get blocks of land that are touching or together, and those blocks of land are protected, and the growth has to go other places because it can't go that direction anymore. And it would be a good way to preserve our water rights, to preserve our farm ground, and to protect our way of life.
And John, you've been a part of this as well.
Yeah, so I was initial board chair for the Coalition for Ag's Future, which we've pulled in now under the Idaho Eastern Oregon Seed Association. So I'm now the board chair for the APA Protect Committee. So we do work with Roger Batt at the state level and Braden Jensen at the Farm Bureau. We've done work over the last few years at the State House. It's an interesting shift. This year we are putting forth into the 26th legislative session a funding bill to try to fund that, to create the incentives for a landowner. But the challenge is right now there are, how do you tax, how do you pull in the revenues? So we're looking at multiple different ways, from if you purchase a home for the first time that was on ag land, maybe there's a one-time fee that goes as a part of that. Maybe there's an opportunity there if a developer buys ground that's ag, that maybe there's some fees that go along with that. The biggest challenge right now that we find is, how do you tax, how do you pull in? So maybe sometimes it's not a tax, and maybe that's the inappropriate word for today, but we have to protect in some capacity what we have on deck and incentivize that. So to Tristan's point, I agree 100%. It's just right now, today, we've got to get that piece closed.
I was going to say, so this is a primary, kind of fuel right now for legislators, it sounds like. Is that right?
We've seen the shift in the mindset. When we first started this, a lot of pushback, both House and Senate side. I will tell you, in the last session last year, there was more involvement, more questions, I would say, across both sides of the fence here, that agreed that we need to do something, and the pushback was less. The education was more. So we are seeing that shift. However, what we're battling now is the next level. States, counties, city, or not states, sorry, but your cities and your counties that are under the mindset grow, 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 grow. And I'm going to let George here kind of talk a little bit about cost of services.
Yeah, you've been doing quite a bit on that.
Yeah, thanks for queuing that up.
No problem, George.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it at more of a local level. If you start at the state level in LUPA and the state statutes, it basically directs all cities and counties to look at various aspects of development. That's why they have zoning laws, they have ordinances. And one of the reasons to protect farmland is the cost of services. Farmland is a net benefit to every community. Industrial, commercial, and net benefit. And residential actually is a deficit. So commercial, industrial are supported by farmland. Farmland, especially in Idaho, feeds the industrial and commercial. So as we continue to eat up farmland and build houses on it, residential on it, we're building into insolvency. And really what we need to look at as every community is having a great portfolio, a great balance sheet. And if we had the time, we could show you the numbers. We're going in the wrong direction, and we continue to go in the wrong directions. So my focus is more local, cost of services, and what is in the best interest of everybody in the community. And it actually outlines that in state statute title 6765, is it 01?
Luba?
It even talks about schools and how that's supposed to be taken into consideration. And a lot of times schools are not taken into consideration when development occurs.
For me, on the way here, I read a sign and it really spoke to me. It's produced by another organization, but it's a big billboard. And so to quote it, it's "Idaho is what America was." And I love this state. I love everything about it, and I want to do everything I can to protect it. And that's what we're trying to do. The reason why people move to Idaho is for that very same reason. They love Idaho, they want to be here, and they want what we have. What we have is beautiful landscapes and wonderful farm ground and great water rights. And we need to do everything we can to protect those things.
Yeah, Idaho is very traditional. Farming is our tradition. Okay, coming up after the break, we're going to talk more about why these farmers have yet to sell their land, what the pressures are. We're all breaking it down next. For the last half hour, we've talked with 3 farmers about Idaho losing ag land, the challenges farmers face today, and possible solutions, what those look like for the future. We continue this conversation for another half an hour. You can watch this town hall in its entirety on KTVB Plus and KTVB.com.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.